What up, it's your K Dot, and I am here to help. Will asked if I have read the Aeneid, and what a coinky-dink I have. So today we will be talking about the Aeneid, written by Virgil. Before we begin though, you should know a little incy bit about Virgil, who wrote the Aeneid, because it sheds a lot of light on how the Aeneid is written. So Virgil is hands down 100% Rome's greatest poet of all time. He's the Beyonce of Roman poets, okay?
I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time. One of the best videos of all time.
In his life, he was middle class, but hella smart, and a bit of a perfectionist. So, Roman Emperor Augustus goes to the greatest Roman poet of all time, aka Virgil, and he says, I want you to write a poem about Rome, and I want it to be epic. At the time, the two most popular epics are the Iliad and the Odyssey. If you don't know the Iliad and the Odyssey, both written by Homer, allegedly, then watch this video or watch this video. Like, it'll help you out. Since this is Virgil the perfectionist who needs like a structured layout for his poems, and since it's like 20 BCE, so very well before the advent of plagiarism, Virgil comes up with the idea that he's just going to take the major events from the Odyssey and the Iliad, especially the Iliad, and just recraft it. And he even come up with his own characters. The character he uses for the Aeneid, who's Aeneus, comes from the Iliad. The problem was Virgil couldn't take any of the well-known characters, the well-known honorable characters, because they all had their own storylines according to Homer. So he takes one of the worst characters, who's like a braggart and like super weak and cowardly, and I don't know, like he has no honor, and he like turns him into this hero. And it's crazy that he got away with it. And now it's one of the third most celebrated epics in our history. So, moral of the story, plagiarize. But don't. Open up the book and Aeneas is just freaking the hell out. Like, he is losing his shit. Aeneas and the rest of the people on this boat are the sole survivors of the Trojans. Trojans from the Trojan War who lost the battle against the Greeks. So the Greeks are now sacking their city and they are sneaking out in the dead of night on this boat. It's also been established by prophecy that Aeneas is going to be responsible for the founding of Rome. That's where this story is heading. And Aeneas isn't so hot about this. Once again, he is like a cowardly little like soldier man. Like I don't even know why he was chosen. But another person who's not so hot about this is the Roman god Juno. Now, it's important to note that we've transitioned from all the Greek gods to the Roman gods. So they have a rough translation. Zeus is Jove and Hera is Juno. So, you know, jealous, revengeful Hera is now jealous, revengeful Juno, and she's the one responsible for making this storm that seems like it's about to kill all the surviving Trojans, which is why, that once again, Aeneas is losing his shit. I just want to say that last year when I was reading this book, they declared the storm heading to New York Winter Storm Juno, so I was losing my shit. I was like, do y'all even know what you guys are saying? It turned out to be a fluke. And just like it was a fluke, Aeneas and the other Trojans survived the storm. And they were all blown to a city in eastern Africa called Carthage. Now, historically, Carthage and Rome were always at war with each other. Now, Virgil had to explain why these two cities were at war, had this blood feud against each other. And he does it the following way. The surviving Trojans with Aeneas on board arrive in Carthage, and when they walk out, the queen, Dido, comes out to greet them. Aeneas goes on to explain the plight of the Trojans from the Trojan point of view. So it's an interesting like reverse of protagonist antagonist from the Iliad. He talks about the Trojan horse coming in and how they were tricked. He talks about the, vicious Grecians who basically decimated their city and raped all their women because that's just what you do. Basically what happens is the gods just whisper in his ear and say, you need to leave. And he goes and grabs his father, who is old and dying. He grabs his son, who is, super young. And he's like carrying his father on his back, carrying his son in his arms, and they're like running towards the boat, and his wife is behind him, and he's like running, and he looks behind him, wife is dead. Okay. And he hops on the boat and he talks about how he was mourning the death of his wife, but then his wife appears to him in a dream sequence or something and says, it's okay, like, I forgive you, it was all in the gods' plan. So basically, in the past, 20 pages, Aeneas has grabbed 3 generations of men, but no women, which is great. Very symbolic. He's also dropped the note that he is single, which is great. Because Aeneas' mother, who is Venus, which is similar to Aphrodite, I'm pretty sure, makes a deal with Juno that Dido and Aeneas should fall in love. That way, the new Roman Empire and Carthage will be best friends forever. But we know that's going to go terribly, terribly wrong. So, Dido falls in love with Aeneas. Aeneas is like, okay, I guess. And they just hang out for a few years. And they're really happy together. Aeneas is happy because he really just wants to settle. He doesn't like fighting or traveling. I'm pretty sure he gets seasickness. I have no idea why he was chosen for this. Which is also symbolic of the Trojans as a whole. They're just so willing to settle anywhere. They don't care about founding the Roman Empire. That's the gods' thing. Years go by, which are really just a few paragraphs in the book, and Aeneas is just chilling by a tree one day. I don't know how this is going. And one of the gods come down and said, dude, this is not what we chose you for. And he said, well, I don't know why I was chosen. I get seasick. Aeneas tells all of the Trojan people, it's time to go. And so they're all loading up the ship pretty quickly because they kind of want to get out of here before, and Dido shows up. And Dido says, what's going on here? Honey, dear. They have basically reduced a independent queen of limited intelligence and unlimited beauty to a really needy girlfriend. Which is great. Which is just so lovely. I just love it when that happens in literature. Aeneas says, well, it's been great, but I'm gonna go now. Dido says, you can't leave, we're married. He says, I don't think that ever happened. Yeah, no, we consummated our marriage. He's like, yeah, but, no, I'm gonna just, okay, bye. And he leaves, flat out leaves. And Dido just, breaks down. She breaks all the way down. She has this little chat with her sister, and her sister's like, maybe you should just, get over him. And Dido says, maybe when you have your heart teared out and trampled on the ground and ripped to a million pieces and you're not controlled by the love god Cupid, maybe you could get over it. And then she goes and gets all of the stuff that Aeneas left in his haste to leave and puts it in a giant pyre. Then she takes one of his swords and kills herself, and then she sets the pyre on fire and she burns alive. And then while she's burning alive, bleeding to death, she says, Carthage will never forgive and always have a blood feud with the Roman Empire. We are never, ever getting back together. So after that love feud, Aeneas and his Trojan survivors are now kind of heading to a place that they think is where the gods want them to go. I mean, they say you have to go to the place of your forefathers, and that can literally mean anywhere. Whose forefathers? And so they land in one area, and they're quickly told that this is the wrong place, but they decide to stop and have a funeral for all the people who have died on this trip so far. While they're there, Aeneas has a little subplot, and he descends into the Underworld. So he goes down there, he sees his father, which is a nice chit-chat. His father has died, BT dubs, on the way to this path, because he was old and sickly. So maybe she should have grabbed his wife instead of grabbing his old dying father. I mean, I don't know whatever. While he's down there, his father takes him on a tour of the Underworld and basically shows him the future and shows him these 3 people who are going to be super great, one of which just so happens to be the Emperor Augustus, who's going to change the world through the Roman Empire that Aeneas is supposed to establish. So you can see the heavy-handed propaganda that Virgil is laying down here. He's basically saying that it was prophesied that Augustus would become emperor and rule the Roman Empire. It was just meant to be. Speaking of encounters, guess who has also just died and therefore also in the underworld, therefore Aeneas also runs into Dido. Aeneas is just walking around, he sees Dido, and he's like, oh my god, Dido, like, what's up? Like, you know, like, we used to have a thing. And Dido, like, flat out won't talk to him. Dido looks at him and is like, and Aeneas just goes like, you know, I was gonna call you, and Dido's just had it. She like realizes the stupidity that she has gone through, and she already has set up the blood feud that will last centuries between Carthage and Rome, so she's like done. She like walks off. Stick it to the man, independence and death. So Aeneas has gone to hell and back, and he comes back a little changed. He's realizing that the path he has been put on has importance. Like, he needs to accomplish this because there's things that are bigger than him in the future that need to be done, i.e. Augustus needs to become emperor. So he realizes that he is part of a bigger plan, and it gives him like this new conviction. So he's like transformed from like self-egotistical dude to like somewhat hero. He's like not Achilles yet, but he's like somewhat hero. And they sail out again. This event sends us into like the second half of the epic, which is very, very close to the Iliad. So if you just want to read the Iliad, just that's what it is. Through the magic of boats, they arrive in this place called Latinum, which is just Italy, and they meet the king Latinus. And he, like, receives them with open arms. He's like, oh my god, like, you guys finally made it. And Aeneas is like, what do you mean we finally made it? He says, well, basically, the gods told me that these foreigners want to come, and I should just let them take over. And Aeneas is like, oh wow, that's great. And the king really wants the head honcho foreigner, aka Aeneas, to marry his daughter. That way they can merge the two kingdoms. And everything seemed to be going great. But, as always, the women who are just evil by nature have to throw monkey wrenches in all the, you know, divine plans of the blah 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 words. The queen of Italy doesn't want these foreigners marrying her daughter. Instead, she wants this guy named Turnus, who's like a local suitor, who's like very, you know, big, bold, and brash, to marry the queen. Marry the princess. Turnus also doesn't like the foreigners. He wants to marry the princess, and he just doesn't like foreigners. And so Aeneas starts to sense that this isn't gonna go as smoothly as he thinks. He goes off to another place, whose name I don't even remember at all. And he goes over there to ask for military aid. While he's gone, Turnus is starting shit like behind closed doors, getting up all the tensions of the locals just to not like the foreigners. One of the Trojans is like hunting for fun, and he kills like a stag or something, and that stag happened to belong to one of the Italians. And the Italian says, dude, this was like my favorite stag. And the Trojan's like, well, I don't care, I was, having fun. Boom, war. And we switch to Aeneas, and he's having a really great convo with some other king who also doesn't like Italy. And he says, yeah, sure, man, you can have all my forces. Like, I want to defeat Italy too. And he says, BT dubs, can you take my son? He needs to see war. Also, please protect him. And usually when someone says, please protect him, something terrible is going to happen. Aeneas shrugs his shoulders, says, yeah, he brings the son along. On the way back, his mother Venus brings him a set of armor. If you have ever read the Iliad, this scene of goddess going to weird blacksmith god, in this case his name is Vulcan, and bringing back this super impervious, super godlike and divine sword and shield getup. Virgil, like, what? Did you even... Virgil. So Aeneas now has his impervious metal, which is a throwback to Achilles, and it marks his like transition into hero mode. Like, he is no longer like the coward, seasick guy we saw at the beginning who was freaking out because of a boat storm. Now he's full on Achilles 2.0. He shows up back in Italy, and his men are already at war. He's like, oh my gosh, I can't leave you guys for like 2 seconds. He joins the battle with his new soldiers. It's clear that the Trojans are going to win. Fighting. Then Turnus, who is on the side of the Italian, he's the direct antagonist to Aeneas, kills Paulus, who Aeneas was supposed to take care of. I just want to point out that Paulus sounds a lot like Patroclus, and if Aeneas is supposed to be Achilles, if y'all have read the Iliad, y'all already know where this is going. Aeneas sees Paulus dead, and he sees Turnus wearing his belt, because I guess when you kill somebody, you take something that belongs to them and put it on your body. Like, that's just something you do. Aeneas freaks the hell out, but this is a different kind of freak out. This is just pure unadulterated rage. He goes to Turnus and he like brutally kills him, like no chance of survival, like stab, 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 stab. Finally, the story is ending. We're at the last paragraph. Aeneas takes back the belt that belonged to Paulus. He stabs Turnus some more, like brutal killing. And the war is clearly going to end. Rome is clearly going to be established. And there's Aeneas, like probably covered in blood, probably covered in sweat, probably covered in dirt. Like he's breathing hard, and he has like accomplished his full transition. Like in the beginning, he was this whiny, scared baby who was scared of water, and now he's like taken souls left and right. He is now the leader that the gods have morphed in him. And have they morphed him into a leader, or have they morphed him into a monster? And that's how it ends. The symbolisms of this story and the shoutbacks to Homer's Iliad and Odyssey are just so rampant that the Aeneid is just now a part of history. Like it's just something that we all now read. So, hope you enjoyed, and I hope you enjoy. Deuces.